This is also commonly referred to as a swivel joint, and it's usually used in the head of an action figure. This is an action figure I did way back in the day for a company called Mezco. This is the Captain Nemo Wave Rider action figure, and as you can see, his head has a disc joint in it, which allows for movement right and left, and that is held together by the surface of the neck hitting the surface of the inside of the upper torso on a pin that just turns right and left and gives you a basic head movement. So the head of our figure is going to have a disc in it, because what we're going to do is you want the head to be able to turn right and left. So the head is going to be a disc joint. Okay. Again, there's several ways to accomplish this. You can either use two prefabricated, you can either use Delran, any kind of plastic disc, and insert it into your sculpture with a metal pin, or you can simply just sculpt the neck part flat on both sides and use the part of your armature that comes out to go into the small hole, and it basically achieves the same effect. So that's joint number one, is a disc joint. We're actually going to be using that on our action figure today that we're going to be roughing out. So we'll have a disc joint in the head for movement there. Okay, we're also going to be using disc joints in the legs. Okay, this is going to allow movement of the legs forward and back. Okay, again, exactly the same as we have on this this Captain Nemo figure here by Mezco. This is actually what we call a test shot. This is typically what you're going to get back from the factory before they actually produce your painted action figure. What they'll do is they'll send your client, it's usually one color, basically of the action figure that you've sculpted and produced. So you basically okay this and say, okay, the joints are fine, it looks fine, the way that everything was put together. Go ahead and now produce the final action figure that is now going to ship. So again, you can see he's got a disc joint in his leg, which is going to allow for movement forward and back. Okay? Now, a much more complicated action figure would have a different kind of joint in there, which would allow lateral movement of the legs and all different kinds of stuff, which is not going to be covered here, because what I want to do is I want to show you the basics. Once you have the basic building blocks of how the basic joints work, it's really easy to figure out how the rest of them work. So the second joint that we're going to talk about today is what we call a ball and socket joint. Works very similar to the way your arms go into your shoulders or your legs go into your hips. It's basically a round ball on the end of some sort of appendage, whether this be an arm or some appendage that sticks off the creature if it's a creature-based figure. And what's going to happen is this ball that you're going to use acrylic balls to make, okay, is going to slide into a socket that you create on the action figure, which allows movement not only backwards and forwards, but lateral as well. So most arm joints on most action figures are these ball and socket joints. As you can see, it can move up and down, and it can also move around. Okay? This joint is the most popular joint on any action figure, because what it does is it provides the greatest range of motion. So there are action figures that do utilize these now in the heads, in the legs, in the waist, in the torso, because it does allow for the most vast and range of motion. So we're going to be incorporating that in this figure as well. So his arms, which on this particular creature we have 4 of them, these are all going to be ball joints, ball and socket joints. We're going to have 4 of them. Okay, so that basically means on the ends of each of the last appendage of these arms, the last section of these arms, we're going to have a little acrylic ball, just like this, that we're going to attach to the end of the sculpture that's going to fit into a hole that we carve into the body of the sculpture that will allow for the range of motion. Okay, so we're going to have 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these will all be your ball and socket joints. Okay, so that's number 2. The last joint that I'm going to tell you about is just for your own basic knowledge. In this course, we're going to only be covering 1 and 2. In this figure, it's only going to utilize joints number 1 and 2. We're going to be using disc joints and ball and socket. But I want to tell you about the hinge joint, which is a little bit more complex, a little bit harder to learn, and a little bit harder to incorporate into the figure, because what it is it basically combines your ball and socket joint with the disc joint. It's a ball and socket that works basically like your elbow or your knee would to extend outwards, backwards, and forwards, or just like your arm would. So you've got this ball and socket joint, say, on the lower leg of an action figure, but what they do is they route out a section for a disc that goes in there on the upper portion of it that a pin goes through and holds it together. That results in what we call a hinge joint, which is commonly used in the legs and elbows of most action figures to provide this kind of back and forth, up and down movement. So there you have it. Those are your 3 basic kinds of joints that you'll see on any action figure. When you're speaking to your client about what kind of figure you're going to be making, whether they're providing the designs to you or not, the point of articulation will always come up. It's a very important part of making an action figure, and it's what separates an action figure from a collectible statue or figurine or even doing a maquette.